Hello Simmers and welcome to Lelystad Airport in the center of the Netherlands again, where we are going to take a look at basically two new add-ons in X-Plane 11. First of all is the airplane that I'm sitting in right now, which happens to be the JustFlight Aero 3-4. Bought that a couple of weeks ago on the xplane.org store. But since there were already a lot of videos about this one, I didn't make any particular video with this, no tutorials or whatsoever, because, well, most of them are already online, so there's no point in creating more of the same, in my opinion. But the other add-on that we're going to look at is a scenery one, downloaded from simheaven.com. It's X Europe. And X Europe is an add-on that uses the default X-Plane 11 scenery objects, with permission from Laminar that is, but places these objects based on OSM data. Of course, if you just use X-Plane 11, you get the same objects, but they are placed by an autogen algorithm. And what X Europe does is it replaces that algorithm with OSM data, meaning that the objects are placed in positions where they are in real life. That doesn't mean that everything looks just like the real thing, but it does mean that you get, for instance, houses on the exact spots where there are houses in real life, that you get industrial buildings on the spots where there are industrial buildings in real life, etc. Greatly enhances well the realism of what you are looking at, especially if you are using Photoscenery like the ones from zonephoto.explain.fr or Ortho4xp. You will see that the buildings are way more accurately placed on the pictures. So at least that is what it promises, and we're just going to take a look and see if that's the case. Now, to make it easy for me to judge whether it's realistic or not, I'm going to fly a little VFR flight in the area that I live in, because, well, if you have the knowledge of what something looks like in real life, of course, it's much easier to judge whether the objects are placed correct or not. So what we're going to do is just make a short flight, take off from Lelystad, fly towards well, Lelystad, Dronten, maybe Biddinghuizen, some small towns in the center of the Netherlands, that is. And the Lelystad airport scenery is a scenery package that I downloaded from the gateway.explain.com. And this is basically Lelystad airport as it is envisioned for the year 2019. Right now, for instance, the terminal building that you're looking at right there is still under construction, and the plan is that it should be finished in 2019, so that from that time we can have charter flights leaving this airport. And they do that with the intention to move all the charter flights from Amsterdam Airport, Schiphol, to Lelystad to give Amsterdam more space to grow and, well, basically free up landing slots for the more heavy, more lucrative airlines to come to Amsterdam. But anyway, let's set the mixture to rich and let's take off and see what the scenery looks like. So gently throttling up. Now, Thomas Rasmussen named JustFlight's Aero 3.4 as one of the best, or as the best, general aviation add-on from 2017. And I must say I fully agree with him. This airplane really is a joy to fly. So positive rate gear up. But I would really recommend you, well, you should do that anyway, but especially with this airplane, to assign some buttons on your joystick for the both the pitch and the aileron trim. So let's retract the flaps, lower the nose slightly, bit of aileron trim to the right, and pitch trim down. Let's lean the mixture and reduce the prop RPM. Now basically the viewing is done with Track IR. I have that program already for quite some time. I love it. I just don't use it that often when I'm flying jetliners, because you have to do a lot of zooming into screens like the flight management system, and I don't think Track IR is best suited to do so. But anyway, let's see if we can trim the airplane. And try to get it stable somewhere between 1000 and 1500 feet. Release the throttle slightly. Let's make a left turn anyway. And in a minute we will take a look from outside the airplane. To give us a better view over the scenery. For now, first we have to make a turn to the east. Oh, climbing too fast here. And here we are overflying the Vogelweg, which is the road down the nose right now. So let's just make it fly straight and level for a while. Trim the nose slightly down, aileron trim to the right. Increase the throttle slightly. So here we are over the province of Flevoland in the Netherlands. Let's just fly to, well, let's go to Biddinghuizen first. It's further to the right. And here we are flying over the typical Dutch polder landscape. Really flat, a lot of windmills, a lot of farmland. And well, let's just fly in this direction for a bit and just take a quick peek outside. Now, as you can see at the farms, the placement of the objects is quite accurate. The living house, the barns, etc. The only thing is that it's in the OSM data, it's probably named as industrial area or industrial buildings. So, for instance, if you take this farm, this should probably be the house of the farmer. That's normal, but these are just barns. and they are depicted in this scenery as like office buildings whatsoever. So the type of object is, it is a commercial building, but in real life it doesn't look anything like that. But the placement of the objects is really accurate. Let's just make a left turn here towards Biddinghuizen. And that is what X Europe does. If you look at this part of the scenery with just the default autogen, you will see the same kind of buildings, but they will be like all over the place. And what the OSM data in X Europe does is place them in a position where buildings like that are in real life. I hope that that makes sense. But it's a pretty cool feature. So let's just fly over the town of Biddinghuizen. You might have heard about that town because there's quite a large festival every year, or a couple of festivals. I think the most well known of them being Lowlands, which is over there because that's where Six Flags Holland is, or Wallaby World is it nowadays, I think. I never get there actually. And there's a large festival ground attached to that site. So you have like the Lowlands Festival, some hardcore, terror, core, I don't know, very loud music festival. DEFCON is called. So let's just take a look at the scenery of the village. Well, this is actually quite impressive. If you look at the houses here, they are all placed according to the position of houses in real life, and this is the small industrial part of the town, which is also kind of correct. At least the placement of the objects is spot on. So let's fly towards Dronten, which is over there, and just see what that looks like. I lived there for quite some time, so I'm quite familiar over there. Let's see what that looks like. So slightly left turn. And if you have trimmed this airplane, well, yeah, like any airplane, but it really does fly itself. It's a very, very lovely airplane to fly. And flying small general aviation airplanes is really what makes X-Plane 11 shine. This is really what it was built for, what it was designed for. And you can really tell that the developers fly general aviation airplanes in real life because, well, I have very little experience with them, almost none actually. But I do have experience flying gliders a lot of years ago. And I must say that these small general aviation airplanes, they really, really give you the feeling of flying in terms of their response. Now let's just take a look at the scenery here. In real life here are apartment buildings at these particular spots, so that's spot on actually. That's a garden center, or was, it's now bankrupt, but that's positioned quite nice. This is the town center. We don't have a cathedral like that. This is the elderly home, and there is a church down there actually. It just doesn't look anything like that one. But it's quite impressive that it's placed spot on. And there's also a church in here that doesn't look anything like that as well. But there is a church there. That tells you something about the detail that's in the OSM data that's used. And that also brings me to the next point, that is that X Europe is of course heavily dependent on the quality of the OSM data. And I'm fortunate enough to live in a part of Europe, the Netherlands, that has outstanding OSM data. Let's see, this is the neighborhood where I grew up in. Well, this is actually quite impressive because if you take, for instance, the apartment buildings over here, They are there in real life, and there are two, just like here. And just as in real life, one is straight and one is curved. This is if you go there, you will see this shape of building at this exact position anyway. There is a school building in here and here. This is a gymnastic hall in real life with childcare attached to it. These are elementary schools. This building is not correct. There is no such building in this position. But that's basically the first building that's dislocated that I can find in the scenery, which is pretty good. Because if you look further, it all seems spot on. Because I know this street quite well. This is a street where I used to live, and there are 6 houses there, and 2, 4, 6 houses in the scenery, with another row of houses behind. This is spot on. Well, this house is a bit out of place as well. This one is half on the street. That's of course not the case in real life. Well, there seems some slightly misplaced buildings, but in general, I say 95%. It's just spot on. This is the high school with this shape of the building being exactly as it is. I don't think this house should be there. This is correct. And this house isn't there either, but I think this is because the OSM data tells that there is a structure there. And there is a structure, but it's just like only a roof on 2 poles where you can store your bikes beneath the roof. But it's not a building. And here's another school building. This is a church again. City Hall. This is the shopping mall with the theater. Well, like I said, there are churches in here and in here that doesn't look anything like that building, but there are churches there, so in a sense that's correct. This is also a church. So is this. So yeah, I must say, ex-Europe, pretty damn nice to look at. Let's continue the flight and let's see what we have here. This is a garden center. And here are a lot of farms with fruit trees. So that looks kind of correct as well. Let's just fly another circle over Dronten. Oh. Oh. Pull up. Here we are. And I must say, flying like this over this scenery with ex-Europe in this airplane, well, of course it can never touch the real experience of a real life flight, but well, in terms of the views, the general image, what you're looking at, it's not bad. Oh, nose up. Let's trim that nose up a little bit. Here we are. Nice and easy. Let's just take another look from the outside. I don't think these houses are here either, but in general, everything is spot on. This is the agricultural high school, or agricultural college, I must say. Well, to be short, I'm impressed. By the way, I have set the world objects setting to max. And of course that helps with the with showing off this scenery. I'm fortunate enough that my PC can handle these settings. That gives another advantage. I'm using Mr.X HD trees for the trees and forests that you're looking at. And that's also a wonderful package, but I would only recommend using that one if your PC is capable of running the sim with world objects maxed out. As soon as you move the slider to the left, the HD trees will switch from 3D trees to basically 2D ones that don't add anything to the sim over the stock trees that are installed. So don't bother downloading that package if you cannot run the sim with the world objects setting maxed out. But all in all, if you have a PC that can, go for it, because as you can see, the forests, well, they look amazing. Let's see, here's the horse riding school, that's correct. There's a gas station in real life. Let's fly towards Lelystad. Let's see what a bigger town looks like from the air with this scenery package installed. And let's gently descend a little bit back to about 1500 feet. Slightly high now. So trim that nose down slightly. While we enjoy the view. A little bit of left aileron trim. What's also, besides the spectacular views in this airplane, the JustFlight Aero 3, there's also a very nice sound engine. If I open this little window here, for instance, just listen. It has a 3D sound engine, making optimum use of the 3D sounds in X-Plane 11, which is of course very nice. And that's also adding a lot of realism. If I turn my head, you will also hear the sound change. And all of this is really helping getting you in the sim, giving you the feeling of actually being there, not just looking at a screen, but well, I think I never flew with VR, but I think Track IR is the next best thing to virtual reality. I will switch to VR in the future, but not just yet. But let's take a look outside the airplane towards the town of Lelystad. This is the A6 highway. And here we are with the city center being over here. So let's just fly over that and see what it looks like. All the terrain that we are flying over right now is one giant boulder. I can show it on the map. Basically this entire part of the Netherlands, including this bit over here, is one big boulder. It's all reclaimed land from the sea. There are dikes surrounding it and the land is lower than the water. But let's just take a look at the center of Lelystad. We have the fire station and the police station over there. with the bank and the Chamber of Commerce and the hospital in here. Then we should have the shopping center in here with the railway station. That doesn't look anything like that in real life, of course, but that doesn't really matter. This is the house of the government of the province with this characteristic shape. The shape of the building is entirely correct. And so is the shape of this street, the buildings in here. And we should have the theater somewhere down here. I think that's this one. In real life, this is one giant orange building. Of course, it doesn't look anything like this in real life, but it's about the accuracy of object placements in X Europe, and that is absolutely phenomenal. So it's a 4 GB download. I can really recommend it. I tried to download it last weekend when it was released, and there was something wrong with the server, it didn't work. But the other day I downloaded the 4 GB within 10 minutes because we are blessed with a very fast internet connection in this part of the Netherlands. This is also quite funny. There's like a cathedral over there. Well, there is a church there, but in real life that's quite an ugly building actually. It doesn't look anything like the Notre Dame Chartres Cathedral, but that's not the point. In the OSM data it says that there's a church over there, so the scenery loads in a standard scenery object for a larger church. Well, that is kind of correct. Let's see what we have here. There's a shopping center over there. This being the prison in real life. This shape is not correct. Well, I say it gives you about like the object placements 95% accuracy. Then of course the objects that are placed don't resemble anything in the buildings that are there in real life. But it gives you the feeling. I really have the feeling right now of flying over the part of the Netherlands where I live. To some extent I can identify some objects. For instance, this like large radio mast is there in real life. Again, it looks different in real life, but it is there. Same height, same position with the dike towards Enkhuizen and the Batavia haven, Batavia harbor. There's a shopping center down here, Batavia Stad. It's depicted correctly, so let's make a left turn here. Well, there are some VFR flight videos on the channel that were made with the beta versions of X-Plane 11, and if I'm considering the frames that I'm seeing right now with the high settings that I have right now, that was unimaginable well over a year ago when we had the first X-Plane 11 betas. So also a big thumbs up to the X-Plane 11 developers, development team for really increasing the performance of this sim. That was always a spearhead in their policy to increase the performance, making the sim ready for virtual reality, and I think they are succeeding in that quite well. Because if I lower my settings, I get this to run up to 40 frames per second easily. But let's just take another flight, another turn towards the east here, northeast actually, and then return to the airfield, completing our first impression of the X-Europe scenery in X-Plane 11. And I must say that I'm really impressed with this. Because if you consider that this is freeware, you can just download the package and install it. And what it adds in terms of scenery accuracy, especially over photoscenery tiles, this really is a must-have. And I fully understand that not everyone can run with these high settings. But still, even if you set the number of world objects lower, still the objects that are being generated are placed with great accuracy. And I think that really adds something to the scenery. Now, another thing are the radio antennas actually. Sometimes you will see large antennas in places where they are not in real life. My guess is that that is because there are like mobile phone antennas in that place. That in real life they are of course very small and just on the roof of another building. But because it's mentioned as a radio antenna, X-Europe will just generate the standard object for a radio antenna, placing huge masts on places where they aren't in real life. So, but all in all, I think this really is a very nice add-on for X-Plane 11 if you like VFR flying. Of course, if you're only flying jets all over Europe or America or wherever you live, then this doesn't add that much. But if you like GA flying, and if you don't like it or never do it, try it, because this is what X-Plane 11 is made for. If you like it, and if you like to look at scenery, if you like to fly in the area that you live in, then you really should download X-Europe, because it will make the area that you fly over more recognizable. Of course, that's worth something. So let's just, we have to lose some altitude. Let's just fly a little circle here, descending further. Because that's the airport over there. And also the physics-based rendering in the JustFlight's Aero 3 with the light here on the yoke, etc. It's just, well, it all adds to an amount of realism that is unprecedented in flight sim history. I still remember when I was flying, I don't know which version of Microsoft Flight Simulator, one of the first, on Windows 3.1. And I never would have dreamt that a flight simulator on a desktop PC could look like this. And if you look at the videos, there are some videos on YouTube showing the evolution of Flight Simulator. Well, it's quite stunning what the gaming industry has achieved over the years. So let's just descend a little bit further. We also have to start reducing speed now. So let's pull back on the throttle. And there we go. So flaps 1. Gear down. This will cause a lot of drag, so add in some thrust, or throttle that is. Flaps 2. Try to keep that speed somewhere around 75 knots. Increase the flaps 1 bit. Increase the prop RPM. And here we go. We are slightly high. So let's increase the rate of descent a bit. But at this rate of descent, of course, we are descending way too fast, so we have to flare a bit early. Bit too fast. So let's gently flare this airplane. And here we are back at Lelystad Airport. So let's just take a quick look at that landing because it sounded quite rough, although it felt not so bad when I was doing the approach. So let's just see. Of course, this is a way too high rate of descent. Should have made another turn, losing more altitude before starting the final approach, but let's just see. Oof, no, that was too rough. Well, but anyway, like I said, the X-Europe scenery, if you are into VFR flying, then you really should get X-Europe from simheaven.com. I will include a link in the description of the video. And I can wholeheartedly recommend to buy the JustFlight Piper Arrow 3.4. One of the best general aviation add-ons for the sim, and according to Thomas Rasmussen, the best one released in the past year. So I hope you liked the video. This is the flight that we took. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, comments, tips, tricks whatsoever, please leave them in the comment section below. I will show my graphic settings in here because I think I will get some questions about that. These are the settings that I fly with, and you can see the hardware setup also in the video description. So again, if you have any tips, tricks, questions, comments whatsoever, leave them in the comments below. As usual, do so in a respectful manner, and I hope to see you again in another video. So thank you for watching, and bye bye.